Peace, peace, peace. All right, well, welcome everybody. My phone, and we will get started shortly. Let's wait for some people to file in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. We'll get started shortly. Just wait for some more people to come in, and then we're going to go ahead and start. Peace, Sister Mandy. What's going on? Peace, Dragon SD. Yeah, I know. I saw your message you sent me, Mandy. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. All right. Just give us a minute or two. We'll start shortly. Peace, Brother Vananoon. Start in a moment. Just getting a few things set. Well, a couple quick announcements, and then we'll go ahead and get into our topic for the evening. All right. All right. So we'll start with a couple of quick announcements. Still finalize, not finalized, but a reminder, did receive 3 emails today in reference to the ritual for the 28th. I did respond back requesting the invite. So how it works, once you request the invite, I send you back an email to set up a brief conversation with you. So I've done that. To my knowledge, those are the only 3 people the last few days that contacted about the ritual. So respond back to my email with a contact info, and we'll just have a brief conversation. Anybody still interested in attending the ritual, you still have a little bit of time. We usually cut off the invite date, usually a couple days before the ritual. So probably the 25th is the cutoff date, I would assume, from what we usually do. So you still have time to request an invite for that. To remind everybody, also beginning next month, keep in mind the first Friday of every month, we will also right here in North Fort Lauderdale, we'll be doing a Black Mass. And just to remind everybody, the Black Mass is centered around the archetype set. The Mass is constructed around, written for us, constructed around the information and the path of spirituality that we deal with. So when I say Black Mass, I want to make sure you don't think it's a standardized satanic Black Mass. It's a little deeper than that. Anybody's welcome to attend that. You just need to contact us to let us know you're coming. Immediately after the Black Mass on the first Fridays of the month will be a class, question and answer discussion class, where we will sit and discuss occult, left-hand path, black magic, any topics in relation to that. Also on the 22nd, which is actually next Saturday, which that's right around the corner, the first of this month's events, we have a drumming out on the beach, and that's more of a fun thing. We have a little build session after we're done drumming. You can bring children to that. Anybody's welcome to attend that if you're a drummer. and you play drums or any type of instrument, feel free to bring that and play. Because usually when we start, in about a half an hour to 40 minutes time, most of the beach is over by where we're playing drums. That's the power of the drums. If you're a dancer and you want to come out and dance, come out and express yourself. It's just an event for everybody. So anybody's welcome to attend that. That's going to be next Saturday evening, 7:30 p.m. That's going to be at Pompano Beach, right there on A1A and Atlantic Boulevard. And that's going to be at 7:30. And we're usually out there for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Afterwards, there's a little spot up the block we go to and hang out for a little bit called Dandy Donuts. It's kind of like a, they got a little more stuff in there than donuts, but we're kind of chilling there for a while and just kick it and talk shit. So anybody's welcome to attend that. All right. Just one key thing. If you want to sit, bring your own beach chairs. Obviously, I put that on the flyer. You'll see that on there. So you will need to bring your own beach chairs, and it's evening time, so it's cool. Bring some water, and you should be good for a couple hours. And that's going to be on the 22nd. Got back to again everybody that emailed me in reference to that. Sent them the flyer. If you're interested in a spiritual consultation or a reading, okay, I want to stress again, as I like to do in the beginning of every video, just so we have a clarity on the difference between the two. A spiritual reading is actually consulting the spirits, ancestors, using a system of divination. Type of spiritual readings I will utilize, reading with the Loha, the Gede, or the Voodoo spirits. If you're interested in getting a reading using Ifa Oracle, that can be done too, or just in general. If you're not interested in a specific system, we can just contact the spirits in general. If you're interested in a consultation is kind of just like a free-for-all discussion where you pretty much dictate and control the consultation. You can ask whatever questions you want. If you're trying to gather information on how to work on this path, whether it's creating altars, certain spiritual systems, areas to start. You could even be advanced on the path. Maybe you want information on taking it to another perspective or a level. And it can be utilized for anything. So that's the difference between the two. I just want to make that crystal clear. So be clear in your email when you contact me and reference that. All right. And again, for all that information, the email is in the description box, which is khnum19@gmail.com. khnum19@gmail.com. Also, throw it out there now. And I'll throw it out later. Going to be 2 times a month on a Thursday. Going to add it's a little different of a flavor of a type show. It's going to be called Conversation with My Barber. It's going to kind of be more out in the field, talking with people live, getting feedback from individuals on a variety of topics. There's some interesting things. This kind of came about. You'll see more as it develops. This idea kind of came about. I think it'll be kind of fun. It'll be a little bit different. Change it up. It'll actually be taking place out in the public. So we got a couple of things planned for that. I think people will enjoy it. It's kind of gonna be fun. Actually, my barber will be in some of those videos. You'll understand the concept once we do the show. He's actually a quote unquote conscious person, if you want to say so. He may not be a straight occultist. Yeah, some of the scenes will be in the barbershop where you'll see the shit that goes on in the barbershop. And me and some of them, we were talking about it, and they were all on board to do it. So, yeah, I think it was kind of going to be cool. It's kind of going to be fun. And you'll get to see, other people. We talk about everything in there, from politics to religion to sports. So I thought it would be cool for people to see that. Sister Yvette and friends. But anyway, there's going to be more to it. I just want to put that out there. That's going to start not this Thursday. First one's going to be next Thursday. It's going to be in the daytime, though. Probably about an hour and a half. It'll be early on Thursday afternoons. But I have more information coming on that. Anyway, having said that, we're going to get into our topic. Esoteric Voodoo. Okay. The reason why I kind of chose that title, some stuff that I was going over. I want to put a clarity on a lot of these spiritual systems that we utilize on this path. Okay. But how we're supposed to really apply and utilize them. And what I mean by that is eliminating a lot of the tradition. Okay. Well, let me say this. The essence of the tradition will always be there, but not getting caught up in the traditions. All right. We incorporate any of these systems on our path how we see fit. I want to make this clear. Okay. And how we do that is placing it in there according to our needs. Where we get stuck with the traditional part of it is sometimes we feel obligated, or we feel that it's mandatory in some shape, form, or fashion that things have to be followed a certain way. That is only true if you have completely, committed yourself to a traditional aspect, in this case, say, of voodoo. Okay. So I want to be crystal clear on that. It could apply to Ifa. It could apply to vampirism. It can apply. It doesn't matter what it is. But in this case, we're talking about voodoo, right? Voodoo, as some say, right? We know the word esoteric, what that means. It means looking at the deeper inner meanings of things, right? The esoterical aspect of things. Spiritual people, quote unquote, are always supposed to look at the esoterical aspects of things as opposed to the exoterical. Most people that are grounded in external religions are constantly looking at the exoterical meaning of things. We don't do that on this path. We're always looking at the esoterical aspect of things. So I want to go through a section that kind of explains this concept from a work that's very vast, thorough. It'll take you a while to go through. Some of you might have seen this before, the Voodoo Gnostic Workbook. Okay. It deals a lot of it deals with the Voodoo pantheon, not just. It deals with a lot of Gnostic and esoterical information that connects a lot of systems of spirituality. Why it's a good book is because it'll give you a broad spectrum of it'll give you an idea of how to put a lot of things together. It'll clear up a lot of that uncertainty from a lot of different spiritual paths. There are a lot of different rituals in this book that are very vast. There's a whole section on the hoodoo spirits. There's an abundance of information in there of really how to work with these spirits and how to work different magical practices to really obtain what it is you need. And why I like it, I'm about dealing with information that gets results. I'm not into all that long, drawn out shit. That's just, it's a bunch of information. And when you're reading a book where it's just carrying on, redundantly, but it's not really taking you to the meat of things, that's just a waste of time. That's for somebody that's a book reader and that's just looking to regurgitate information. This book has a wealth of information, but it'll also give you a bunch of different things that you could actually apply. So there's a small excerpt in here I want to go through, and then if you're here on the channel for the first time, we'll go through some material. I will go back through the chat and we'll answer questions, read comments, etc. And also, one other quick announcement, as some of you know, forgot to mention, the radio show. We did our first show back last night. I know we had, if some of you were in there, I know we had little bumps and bruises with the new format. It's a different software. They've updated the TalkShoe website, which I know all of you has experienced. But I found out some information today that I wanted to pass on about the phone. I know there were some things that came up about the phone. So let me put this out there real quick before I forget. They have this new thing now. If you have a certain cell phone carrier, they charge you a penny a minute. And I know they're doing it. You'll hear a prompt when you call in. or you have to add this to your plan. I don't know why. It's a United States number, but I know if you have T-Mobile or Metro, it's going to, require that. So that has changed a little bit. It kind of threw a few people off because I received some emails this morning about that. So I just want to put this out there. That's something. When I went on to the talk show, I read something about some fee with the carriers. It's got nothing to do with talk show. Apparently, this is if you call in any type of conference platform. Apparently, that's the new rule with some carriers. This is just the information I gathered. So if you do tune into the radio show in the future and you hear that, that's the reason why. Personally, from looking at the new format, there's one thing you can do on there that we couldn't do on the previous format. If you just, like, when you come into when you enter the room or you enter the show or log on to the show, it tells you how you want to connect. Personally, if it was me, I would just bypass the phone thing unless you're traveling. I get if you're out and about, it's good to be able to log in on the phone. Now, if you have a cell phone carrier where you don't have no problem, then call in on the phone. But I'm more or less speaking to an individual that, say, has that cell phone carrier that's trying to charge them or make them add that to their plan. I would just recommend to that individual, log in on your computer and just plug in a headset. You don't have to wear the headset, but you get better sound if you wear the headset. And this way you now have the ability to participate in the show if you want to ask a question, or you can just listen, whichever you choose. Again, that's in reference if you're an individual that had that issue last night. So that's what that was about. But again, we had little bumps and bruises. We got through it. It went fine, and we'll improve on it. And that's the second Thursday of every month, 8 p.m. So I just wanted to put that out there before I forgot. All right. So we're going to go into a section on page 38, I believe it is. Now, if you're not familiar with this book, this system actually comes from a Voodoo esoteric order in Haiti called the Order of the Black Snake. It's actually comprised the information is actually gathered from various different high priests from that order. Michael Berteau, if you Google him, you'll probably pull up different opinions on him. He's a unique individual. There's also some Japanese mysticism here, which I thought was pretty unique. Shinju, he's heavily into that. He's got some sections on that. But you're going to see, as far as looking at Egypt and Benin and some of the African spiritual systems, it goes, in my opinion, a lot deeper on the internal level, because esoteric voodoo and how it's incorporated, you'll see some of the traditional essence there, but this is about really going deep within yourself, whether it's through, means of invocations, whether it's means of actual working rituals. It deals with a lot of powerful stuff. All right. So let's go through this section real quick. Esoteric voodoo is the science of the orientation of the temple of consciousness, which you must create with your will, mind, and imagination. So right now, we just see in the very first statement, this is the difference between this and, per se, traditional methods, because nobody's going to create this for you. You're going to have to create it for yourself, right? Esoteric voodoo, therefore, will be a method which teaches you how to organize your magical inner experience using the most suitable symbols, which are the symbols having the most power. The symbols used must be evocative of power. They must serve to call it forth from other religions, other parts of the universe, other universes, and dimensions. It is not enough to say that the symbol is the sign which suggests something mystical. The symbol must be a machine or an engine for the generation of magical power in its own way, not in any way which depends upon the mere mind of the practitioner. All right? Voodoo must be a science of success which works for every mind, and not because of the mental attitude, for voodoo is the science which handles powers as they are in themselves, not because of what we think. So voodoo is not psychological, it is metaphysical and physical. The symbols it uses are physical powers in being. The orientation of conscious is possible because of the ways in which voodoo power gives direction to the mind. That's one of the key elements, how it gives power to the direction of the mind. Voodoo power tells the mind what to do and how to do it. I have said that the orientation of consciousness is achieved by means of powerful symbols, which are magical engines. Now, as we know with the Loa, right, you have veves or sigils, whatever term you want to connect. We know those are vehicles used to activate that energy, right? The veves draw the energy and the presence of those spirits. If you want to say it's kind of like a porthole for that energy to come through, it's activated by way of that. We work with that in many systems of magic, not just voodoo and working with veves, but sigil magic is very prominent, or using certain levels of symbols in many different spiritual systems. Even go back into your satanic Bible in the Book of Belial, right? I always refer people to go back and read that. Yeah, even though a lot of that stuff dealt with psychodramas, and rituals do deal with an aspect of psychodrama, especially group rituals, which is important. But in the Book of Belial, and I always tell any black magician to always go back and really thoroughly go through it, because especially the section on satanic ingredients for black magic, and you hear me mention that a lot frequently. Why that's such a good piece is because the satanic ingredients of black magic, you can utilize that blueprint for any spiritual system. It deals with imagery, the importance of imagery. To me, probably the most important thing in there is intent, right? How to fuel your intent, your timing and planning of rituals, right? This is all just good ground knowledge to help and assist you, whatever system you're working with. If you're planning a vampiric ritual, it's perfect for it. If you're planning a Luciferian ritual, perfect for it. If you're doing a demonic integration, even better. If you're working a voodoo ritual, right, even better. So it's definitely something you definitely would use kind of as to get a blueprint, a map that can be applied to any situation or scenario. All right. So let's go ahead and finish through this. All right. Okay, I've said that. Okay, the means that these symbols. This means that these symbols are the ways through which the inner contacts of voodoo or the spirits of the Loa operate through the veil which separates the inner from the outer. The symbols become instruments of perception or research whereby the spirits look into our world and cause certain things which they desire to happen. So as they look into our world, they send into our world their power to do what we want them to do. Sometimes we see they say among themselves that we want them to act behind the veil on the other side of the wall of consciousness. That means we do not make any use of symbols, but rather make contact entirely, okay, this is important, with our mind. So we've said this many times before. It could be a statue or an icon, or it could be a sigil. It's not actually the physical aspect that you're connecting with, right? You're using that aspect of this, be it the sigil or the image of an archetype, to activate a certain part of your consciousness within your mind. That's the power. If you've ever worked sigil magic, that's how sigil magic works, right? You could even use, to show you that's when you disconnect that physical aspect of it, you can use a method of simply over the air, just whether you're using, say, your athame, or whether you're using some type of magical tool, you can draw sigils in the air over your altar in certain rituals you're working, right? So what you're really doing, and as you're drawing, though there may not be a physical representation there consistently, but as you're drawing it, you're drawing the image in your mind. Because if you're just drawing it in the air, right? You do this when you're doing invoking or banishing rituals, and which is a whole nother story. We're not going to get into that now. As we say on this path, we don't really we're not trying to banish any energy. Or when you're trying to prepare your sacred space, you're drawing that out in here. Even though you're doing it physically, that's just kind of creating the image that you need to visualize to get it locked in the psyche, right? That's what's unique about this. And this is the difference between approaching a voodoo working esoterically and eliminating a lot of the external tradition. Very important. All right. All right. So the esoteric prayer, it is common to all types of spiritual activity. Now, you'll hear that term used in here, prayer. We don't pray on this path. Okay. Now, when you're talking about esoterical prayer or invocations, right? The difference between invocations / even though that's the term used here, esoterical prayer, it's more of an agnostic method of approaching things, right? You're not trying to pray to anything external, because that's not a reality, right? What you're doing is by way of invocation, right? You're invoking or summoning a particular energy, right? So want to make that clear. You'll hear that term throughout this book. But you have to be intelligent enough to know how to apply that when you're doing your work. Now, remember, every book isn't written or geared specifically to what we deal with. So it's our job, quote unquote, as gods or goddesses or adepts, to pick and cipher out what we can utilize and apply and what we can't toss to the side. So I want to point that out. But you'll hear that term used in this section, all right? Liken it to invocation. That's why I wanted to point that out, okay? Because that's how I've adjusted using this, okay? In fact, one would have to be out of the physical body actually to be effective in esoteric prayer. See, that's the difference. But the body is in a hit or miss type of activity because few, if any, have such precise minds. That is why we use symbolic engines. This is the real justification of voodoo. In voodoo, there are many sects. The name for the secretaries of La Couvreau Noir Rouge on the operative magicians, i.e. those who do practical work. That's one of the orders that assisted in the information in this book. There are other societies, LC, and of course, such as Les Ophites, practical work. There are other, we're going to skip some of this. This is just talking about some of the different orders. We're going to skip that. We're going to go second paragraph. I'm going to skip. Now, to establish the orientation of the temple, which is really the way in which the symbols of esoteric voodoo will work as magical engines, it is necessary to indicate that each of the zones, there are 8 magical directions or pathways, powerful growth of more and hot points. Now, if you've ever done any work with hoodoo, voodoo, spirits, and magic, you know how that altar is set up. It's talking about those different points. It's trying to explain to you those different points, okay? Okay. These directions are northwest, south, east, northwest, northwest, southwest, and southeast. Which is also unique about this is when you cast your hermetic circle, you also go in all 8 of those directions, which is similar in this practice. Each of these doors of consciousness has its own meaning and vibration, its own spirit or loa, and its own life, its own intimates and its own initiations, and its own projections into other dimensions and pathways through space, consciousness, and time will. For example, there is a particular point of contact named after the loas of the Gede family, right? Which are the spider loa, family Zarigun, such as Maitri, Baron Zarigun, his consort Mysteri, and their son T. Zaragun, and their daughter Mysteri Tola Aragini. In their construction of consciousness, they occupy the east, west, south, and north of the temple. To find a spider's web in the north side of one's home is a good sign indeed. However, if we use these loas in our temple, we will not want to use them as dominant powers of the temple, but only as complements to the 4 major powers of Las Hoodoo. Thus, while some loha may appear to be very much the same being, Esoteric voodoo permits the magician to make many distinctions, whereby it is possible to develop the magical personality of these loa and thus climb up each or reach their own magical vibration. Okay. This is important right here. Okay. It is possible to develop the magical personality of these loa and thus climb up or reach up to their own magical vibration. Okay. So again, this is you actually doing this. Okay. Because up here, okay, I want to make this particularly clear. When it talks about the different personalities, right? Let's talk about that for a little bit. Once you come upon them and setting up your temple for the real level of research, before you thought they were fundamentally the same types of real energies, but now you can see how different they are. Indeed, you can now see they are entirely different types of families of spirits and magical loa. Now, getting down to the business of setting up consciousness, you will assign, well, before we begin there, let's stop for a second, all right? I'm going to skip to, because that's going to get into a section if you're actually doing a working, right? You'll see as you go through up until page 42, there's some techniques you can utilize in there. From that point where we left off to 42, if you do have the book. Then it's going to get into some exercises, which I would suggest if you do have the book, I would definitely look into some of it. But the key here is, and what I wanted to kind of focus on, the key here is it's basically trying to tell you this is something that you're going to have to create by tapping into the inner conscious of your mind when dealing with making a connection, getting results, getting something accomplished. Whereas, now let's compare it to a lot of the traditional stuff. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of sacrificing of animals in some of these rituals, right? Because people will always send emails and ask questions about, could be about Palo, any of these West African spiritual systems, and I always tell them, understand. I want to make this clear because I've said this before several times in the past. You can't deviate and pick and choose on your own. You understand what you want and don't want to do when you take the traditional route. Because when you become part of the quote unquote these houses, you have to abide by the rules and regulations. It's not a choice. I want to make that clear. That's the difference when we're on the path of self-mastery. We do have a choice. We can pick and choose what we want and want not do. And this is where I think some people get lost because they say, I want to, be a part of, or immerse myself in this, but they don't understand. Traditionally, I'm talking about, but they don't understand what comes along with it. So I'm saying that to say I want to make it clear we're not talking about that. When we talk about esoteric voodoo, as it mentioned in here, you see it's a different level of working with it. And I said this a million times before, and I think this goes over a lot of people's head. The more you come down this path, you're going to find out it's more mental than anything. You're going to see the further you go, a lot of the external things start to just fade to the wayside. Do you understand? Because you're going to find that the real intense work, the work that really gets you results, the work that you really progress and grow from is all going to be dealing with a high level, focusing in mentally. A lot of the rituals that we work involve that. And as I said before, you'll get a lot of people that will come and connect to physical things and rituals that are tangible, such as the drumming and things of that nature. But some of the darker occult rituals, quote unquote, using the term, or the darker black magic rituals, they struggle with because it deals really with going intently within, really analyzing yourself and dealing with the power of the mind. Esoteric voodoo is the same thing. It's a little different working with the Loha, the Gede, the Petro Loha, or the Rada Loha, whatever. And in esoteric voodoo, we don't really separate the two. You understand that? In traditional circles, they'll say, really be careful when you work with the Petro or the fiery Loha, right? We don't approach it like that on this path. You understand? We understand in essence, every magician understands in essence that these are just volatile energies on all levels. All right. We school and educate ourselves on knowing how to facilitate the energies. So the difference is in traditional paths, there's a structure, there's a format, there's a list of do's and don'ts, right? And you must, stay in line and sequence with them. When you're practicing it in this method, you're the facilitator, you're in control. So your success and failure is going to depend on what you're successful at applying or not. That's the beauty of it. Now, again, the traditionalists, as I said before, would probably disagree with what I'm talking about right now. One, I couldn't really care because we're not here to appease and pacify traditionalists, because we're stating and making our intent clear. I don't practice or teach voodoo according to traditional means or methods, because traditional means and methods have become, in this day and time, like religion. And that's what we're trying to completely avoid. When we approach it in our work, right? And the reason why you always hear the term intent, I always say any path you work, right? And since we're talking about voodoo at this present moment, what is your purpose for wanting to work with the Loha? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you think it can do and assist for you? How can it help you? Do you have a good frame of mind of why you want to work with it? Because if you don't, that right there, your intent is very weak. You understand? Your intent is not going to be strong. Understand the methodologies, because it's good to dive in, but you need to dive in with certain level of preparedness, at least the basics. The reason why I say that, because this is not a system where there's somebody there to hold your hand and guide you and take you through every aspect of it. Because once you get the basics down, then it's your job to be able to flow and work with it yourself. And that's where I think the struggle comes from. Whereas in traditional methods, for the most part, you have, elders and priests and priestesses, guiding you through the way, because there's that structure. And again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having teachers and elders and people to guide us, because you do. But where it becomes a problem is where you 100% solely rely on depending on that. Whether, you can't do nothing unless the Babalawo tells you an Ifa, or your Padrino or your Madrina tells you an Ifa, or the Hugan or the Mambo tells you in voodoo, right? I always said, if you approach things in the right frame of mind, with the right intent, and you respect it, you understand, you won't have a problem. Trust me when I tell you, you won't have a problem. And you can't worry about what other people think, because you're never going to be able to do things in accordance that everybody agrees with. And remember, one of the things of letting go on this path, when we talk about isolated consciousness, right? When we talk about fully immersing yourself on this path, which is a form of initiation, by the way, you got to shed all those things. You're not concerned with what people think. What I mean by that, just so we understand, remember, somebody who has tapped into the aspect of their isolated consciousness is a free thinker, a nonconformist, right? You're not here to just do things because everybody else is doing them and because it's the in thing to do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that going on, quote unquote, in conscious circles. It becomes a club. I call it the Mickey Mouse Club, right? The whole Egyptian thing, that's become, let's be real, that's become like a trendy thing the last 10, 15 years. We don't do that on this path. We do what suits us need be, because remember, you are your own God on this path, and who else better knows what things you need to bring into existence to suit you and your needs? Nobody but you. So that's the difference. This aspect of voodoo deals with that, right? you're contacting, you're going into the inner depths of your subconscious mind and activating the energy of these spirits. That's what esoteric voodoo is. A lot of the rituals, matter of fact, where I left off in reading right there, you will see from that point forward, there's a lot of the rituals when the altars are set up, it's dealing with those eight points. And I want to go back to that for a minute, because what's real unique about that, if you practice Heka, Egyptian black magic, it's not much different from when you cast a hermetic circle. And what is that hermetic circle? After you call the four corners, right, which is tied into the four sons of Heru, right? Then when you again, I've talked about this before, you have the 4 points. You always call that first. And then when it mentioned the points in between, north, northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest, etc., you have that full circle, because you're actually drawing that 8-pointed star with the circle. It's really the chaos symbol, because everything is embedded in that chaos. Look at the 8 points when you use it. You look at it when you do that ritual there. You will see it's all centered around those 8 points, right? And remember, it said within those 8 points are the pathways and gateways to those low house spirits. So this is all. I'm trying to go through this because this is a whole different way of working with voodoo outside of just the traditional way. So there is a correlation there. There is a connection there with those 8 points, and a lot of these rituals, the 8 points as you set up your altar and working with this, you're going to see there's a similarity and a connection there. And it's the same thing when you are casting that hermetic circle, which I found this very unique, because that's what this deals with. When you're casting that hermetic circle, what is the purpose of that? You're locking yourself in. That space becomes kind of sealed, and it creates a certain sacred energy there that when done right, you feel locked in, and your higher mental powers start to kick in, your focus, your concentration, etc. When done right, you can definitely feel it, and you can definitely connect to it. So this is a similar practice to that. So if you practiced or if you utilize some Egyptian Heka, you'll be able to relate and connect to this. Now, we know a lot of these systems obviously have some levels of connection, because in a sense they are connected, but yet separate. Separate in the sense because of their methodology, but very similar in what they represent and what the goal or the result one is trying to achieve. This, if you have not utilized this aspect of voodoo, is very powerful. It's very intense. It's very intense, and it takes a lot of work in the sense that it's a lot of mental focus, and it's not for the weak-minded, and it's not for the hardcore traditionalists, because the problem, again, as opposed to this with traditional aspects of this path, is most of it is physical, and most of it is external. Most of it is going through, the motions of certain traditional rituals where there's not that intense inner reflection. There's not that intense aspect of activating that godlike quality of yourself. And as it said there, you are creating the magical entities. Remember when we read in the first section? Very important to understand, because remember, I think some people get thrown off with this too. When you're having these external experiences, and let's go back to what was mentioned earlier about the sigils or the symbols that are used as vehicles to activate the energy of your psyche and your subconscious mind, right? I think where certain things get thrown off when we still struggle with that external deity worship. It's there, okay? When we say, are we really having an external experience? Like, let me give you an example, just so we're clear. There's still some people, and I don't know if they know how to put this in perspective. They'll say, I did a ritual, and let's just say Callie personified in front of me and spoke to me, right? Your mind is creating that, right? You're activating it, but what's happening is the reason why you're seeing it and experiencing like that, even though the experience in nature appears external, it really isn't, because it had its origin in the mind, right? You had to form this whole experience was something that you formulated in your mind. You had preconceived notions from jump because you already created an image of Kali in your mind or any deity that you're working with. So 9, it's going to always personify how you created it, how you wanted to see it in your mind. When you have dreams of these deities, you're seeing it like that because consciously and unconsciously, that's how you created it. But when you go back to the 7 Hermetic principles and the first principle that we talk about all the time, all is mental, mental is all. That's what it means, where everything has its point of origin in the mind, even if it's creating the illusion that's an external experience. Well, people still struggle with that because they think that something is happening outside of myself. So there's something outside of myself that is more powerful than me. No, there isn't, because you are the facilitator and the conductor, as it said in there. It's hard to grasp that when you've had years of indoctrination of people telling you how to think, people telling you who and what God or the creator is, people telling you what, how you got here, where you're going, and what's going to happen to you when you die. These were all things that were programmed into you. And by the way, fear was the thing pumping behind them, right? This is a reality because most of those dogmas are based on fear. They keep people in line by fear. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you when you die. Reality is, and I've said this a multitude of times, you don't really know what's going to happen to you when you die, right? I know you can speculate, you can read every ancient text you want. It's all bullshit because at the end of the day, the only way you're going to know, guess what? When that time comes. That's the reality. So you can sit here and read the coming forth by day, the opening of the mouth ceremony, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. You can go into the Bhagavad Gita and you can read all of the Dravidian scriptures. It's still not going to really prepare you for what you got to go through. Now, what this path does, you can get the answers to those questions, right? Travel in the astral and the spiritual planes. I've mentioned this before. And you can come to the realization of what happens to you when you die. But guess what? That's personal for you. That's a subjective experience that you have to raise yourself up to. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned I believe it was last video. This is why we are on these spiritual paths. Be real. Those basic questions are the main driving force. How did you get here? Where are you going? What's going to happen to you when you die? And where do you go after you die? Don't front. Be real with yourself. Don't try to play deep like no, that's the reality. That's what keeps you motivated. That's what's motivated us from day one, quote unquote, to be on conscious paths. When we found out them lesser spiritual systems and religions didn't have the answers, we tried to go into more intense spiritual systems. And this path will give you the answers to those questions. But the difference is nobody's going to give them to you. That's the problem. You have to put in the work and raise yourself up to the realization of it. Once you put in the work and raise yourself up to the realization and have your own experience, not somebody else's experience, not some other groups, leaders' experience, right? Because that's not a reality. When you co-sign on somebody else's subjective experiences, you just created another religion. And that's what we avoid on this path. Remember, you as the adept are the center of your universe, right? As long as you stay in the center of the universe and you control yourself and your immediate surroundings, there's nothing that can harm you, okay? Nothing that can harm you. And I want to make this clear because I've gotten emails in the past, and over the years in the past saying, so you're saying, nothing in the world can affect us? What about all the calamity? I said your immediate surroundings, right? Anything external, of course, what goes on in the world and in nature, because when we deal with the microcosm and the macrocosm, of course that affects us. But when we're working out magic in accordance with the elements and we're changing in accordance with nature, it doesn't affect us on the level like it does people that flip out and panic and are scared shit of it. You understand? Here's the bottom line. For all those people that fear calamities and natural disasters, let me tell you, listen, you want the reality? You want me not to sugarcoat it for you, not to bullshit you? If we were sitting here right now and a meteorite was coming at this planet so fast and it was going to get here in a matter of minutes and destroy this planet, guess what? Stick your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye, because that's all you can do. Unless you've mastered the ability to dematerialize in a matter of a few seconds, which could be possible, okay? And you can speed up your vibration a million times faster than in the pace that you're at now, and you can completely dematerialize back into pure energy, then guess what? Kiss your ass goodbye. See, we don't live our lives on this path fearing that shit. See, all the shit you got going. Let me give you an example. Look at recently the hurricane that just hit North Carolina, right? Some bad flooding, don't get me wrong. There's some areas that are going to get bombed with the flooding. But look how they sensationalize. They try to pump you with fear. It's category 4. It's going to be one of the worst stuff. They do that here where I'm at in Florida. Anytime a hurricane hits, and granted, you always got to be prepared. It can be a very dangerous thing, and I'm not downplaying it because I've been through a couple, so I know. My whole point is, if you sit there and watch the news, they will make you go fucking batty and crazy because all they do is just pump fear into you, right? It is coming, and it's just constant repeating the same shit over and over, showing you the same, because repetitiveness drills a certain part of your psyche. If I can repetitively repeat things and stamp them in your subconscious mind, I can instill fear. That's how religion has been successful, because they have a methodology and they have a repetitiveness and a same methodology of doing things over and over, because that repetitiveness is what one instills the fear and puts the control there. How do you know that? Real simple. It's the same thing if you say your alphabets, right? You don't really know your alphabets. You know them because they're taught to you in harmony and repetition, right? We're all taught to get A, B, C, D, E. That's harmony and repetition. Try to say the motherfuckers backwards. You won't even be able to do it. Counting, even try that to a certain extent. I'm not talking about 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Start from a really high number. There's a repetitiveness. Even in your times table, when you were a kid in school, your times table was taught to you in repetitiveness. You understand? Straight Panther. Okay, you in North Carolina. I'm going to get to some of the chats and questions soon. So peace and greetings to everybody in the room. Yeah, I mean, we're glad to see you safe, and anybody else that's in the Carolinas. Hopefully everything worked out for you, because believe me, I've been through them, so I know they can be nerve-wracking. To me, going through a hurricane is more nerve-wracking waiting for the shit to come. It doesn't bother me when it actually comes. I can't stand waiting for the shit to come. And actually, when the last hurricane hit, there's spiritual work you should do in that, because and I talked about this on a video I did shortly after the hurricane last year, because we got hit with one here last year around this time. I did a whole ritual to seal the house as the hurricane came in. And who is the god of storms? There's many archetypes you could deal, but who is the key gods of storm and chaos? Set. I did a whole ritual sealing the house with the energy of Set. Oya, right? If you are a magician, you know how to look in any situation and see that aspect of it. Not just in fear and saying something bad is getting ready to happen, but how can I take that which appears to be bad and turn it into something else? And if you go back on the video, I did a video right before the hurricane. I gave people the ritual to do. You should seal your house, invoking the energy of the god of storms, right? Because what have I always said? The magician, the adept, is always in immediate control of their immediate environment and their surroundings. That's what you can always control. Now, you can't control everybody else's house and everybody else on the block, but I guarantee you can control your shit, because I guarantee you your shit will stay unharmed, and it could be possible your very next door neighbor could have destruction. Understand what that concept means. Being in control of yourself and your immediate surroundings and environment. This work extends on a whole level beyond just the mundane. And what I mean by the mundane, just the regular going to my altar and doing, those, more known practices. You must learn to apply your magic 24/7, all the time. You must learn, look, let me give you an example. I said managing your time, and working with Esoteric Voodoo gives you that power. There's one method out, not just this, but many other systems gives you that power. One of the hardest things to master, and it is magic, is being able to get the most productive usefulness out of your time. Time in itself is an illusion and a trick, but getting things accomplished, right? Simple tablet. We don't look at it like that, but I'm going to explain something to you. I mentioned this before in the past. Tonight, you go to sleep. This is a form of magic, whether you understand it or not. Say tonight, you got stuff you got to do tomorrow, right? You can use magical concepts to achieve that goal. Sit and think about and visualize how you want that to pan out. So I'm just saying, if it's some basic shit like you got to run some errands and get some tasks and some things done, sit down, visualize it, seeing how you're going to do it, kind of repeat it to yourself. And when you carry it out just like that, and you're able to get it all accomplished, and then when it's finished, look back on it, that is utilizing mastering time and working a system of magic. Because some of us struggle just with everyday simple things in life that we got to adhere to. You understand? That we can't get accomplished, such as running errands and taking care of our everyday tasks, life's responsibilities. Get yourself in order. That's part of getting control of yourself, right? Whether it's disciplining yourself to get to bed at night, get enough of sleep, getting up on time, using every productive aspect, because when time controls you, you become a victim of it. You understand? When you control it, you understand you have more flow. It's a whole different concept. Now, we don't look at that as being quote unquote magic, because the reason why we don't look at it, because it's something we deal with on an everyday aspect, but we become so consumed by it, we don't see the effect that it has on us, right? So this is something important to really understand. Esoteric voodoo, when you're manipulating quote unquote the elements, right? When you're tapping into the inner depths of your subconscious mind, because this work takes a lot of that, right? We just recently, for an example, did the last ritual a couple of weeks ago, Papa Legba, right? And we know Papa Legba, represents, the great communicator, connecting this realm to the realm of the dead, quote unquote. But it focuses on clearing mental blockages or pathways within the psyche, right? It deals with being able, first and foremost, you can't proceed forward if your spiritual paths are blocked, right? So we worked with elements and symbols and energies that are connected to opening those pathways and blockages, right? And as far as the magical system of voodoo, there is kind of that system of how it's set up. Papa Legba representing the energy you want to activate to clear your blockages. And clearing your blockages also deals with analyzing yourself and recognizing those things, right? And this is where some people don't do that. They think you don't go into that work and say, there's external things blocking me. That's not what that's for, because that's not what you're doing or trying to accomplish. When you're activating that energy, per se, of that particular law of Papa Legba, you're trying to figure out what it is about yourself that's holding you back. What things are you doing? What behaviors? What personality characteristics, or what things in general are you approaching incorrect? And first and foremost, recognizing them and then making the effort to actually set out and correct them. That's step one. And that's the difference with this path. We never ever are pointing at something external for the reason for our failures. We're not doing that. We never did, and we never do. You understand? Because everybody likes to play the role of the victim. Trust me when I tell you. Everybody likes to think when something's going wrong for them, they're being done wrong because somebody's out to get them. And 9 out of 10 times it's a bunch of bullshit. You understand? So this is something important, very important to grasp and understand. This path, I don't care, again, it applies to Luciferianism, vampire, whatever it might be. This path, it definitely requires strong mental power and energy. Now, remember, something I've been mentioning the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to throw it in here because this is the perfect segue for it again. You will never be a successful black magician / adept if you're not a critical thinker. This esoteric voodoo requires critical thinking, okay? And if you're not a critical thinker and you need somebody to hold your hand and do everything for you, it's not the path for you in general. And I'm talking about overall. Because, again, like I said, this is the path where I've always posed the questions to these conscious groups and these groups that have gurus and leaders over them. At what point does the student let go of the master's hand and become the master themselves? You understand? I always ask this question to people that have been stuck in these dogmas and organizations for years upon years. At what point do you stop being the student? You understand? Because as long as you still keep taking the title student and sit up under somebody, you keep giving them the power. Do you understand? Now, when dealing, for an example, and we've talked about that many times, dealing with, in the book of Sith, right? The power or the rule of two, remember? That's the objective, right? For the student eventually. Now, you can apply this symbolically. I'm not saying you got to apply it literally, but the student eventual goal is, in order to become the master, he must destroy the master. Now, how do we look at that? Or how should we look at that on this path? When I look at that, it means to destroy the master. It doesn't mean lashing out to physically kill them and destroy them. It means to kill the power and the control that they have, to completely separate from them, and to not kill the complete connection of dependency, right? Remember, there's mental alchemy to this, right? There's even we even talked one time in the past about Sith mental alchemy, etc. That's what it means to destroy, to completely eliminate it where it's not necessary for you anymore on this path, where you're now able to stand on your own too, or I should say three if you're a male, right? That's a whole nother story. But you should have that ability and power now. You are the master now. So you've killed that concept that I need to sit up under something or somebody. Now, again, I want to make this clear. It doesn't mean you can't take guidance and instruction from elders. I mentioned this earlier in the video. It just means don't become solely dependent on it. Because the worst person to talk to, and we all probably know somebody. I don't care if it's any of these quote unquote pro-black conscious organizations. And I'll use, let's say, the Nation of Islam, not to knock them, or even the ones I really love that kill me, or the Dr. York Nawapian people, as I like to call them now. They always say, well, Farrakhan says, and Dr. York says, and the master teacher says, and blah, blah, blah says, blah, blah. And when I hear somebody always start a statement like that, I try to stop them in their tracks, and it fucks them up. So, well, what do you say? What's your thoughts on it? I don't want to hear what such and such said. And that's the problem. When you sit up under somebody so long, you start to become a parrot of everything that they say. You start to mimic everything that they say. And you can't even formulate your own sentences. I mean, literally, I know people like this. You understand? So your objective when on this path is to completely separate from that nonsense. You understand? That's how you destroy that. That's how you bring yourself to the realization of the reality of it. Because you're going to find out, and again, I'm not saying, look, especially for newer people on the path, if you come from a previous system, and we've been talking about this lately, I'm not saying that mentality is going to disappear overnight. That's not what I'm saying, because obviously that would be ridiculous to think that. But what I am saying it for more so for the newer person is be aware of it, because it's there. Trust me, it's there. And I'm going to also say this for the more advanced person. Sometimes it's there and they're doing it unintentionally and they don't know. You understand? This is very important to understand, because it helps you catch it when you do it. Because if it's constantly happening and you're not catching it, then there's something going on. There's something wrong. So yeah, it deals with those different aspects. All right. So what I'm going to do, I think we kind of touched on. Hold on, let me go up. I'm going to go to the top of the chat. So what I would like everybody to do, type some questions in that you might have. I'll skip some of the personal conversation between you to save time. I'm not going to really get into that. Let's dialogue on this and get your input on this. So if you got questions on any of the material that we just went over, something in relation to it or something you want to add, go ahead, type it in. I'm going to go down through the chat. I'm going to start from the top. So keep that in mind. I'm going back to the beginning of the chat. So if you've typed something in recently and say, what's taking me so long to get to you, I'm not ignoring you. It's just I'm going to start from the top to try to get to everybody. All right. So let's see. I greeted mostly everybody here. If I didn't greet you personally, peace and thanks for tuning in. All right, so let's see what questions and whatnot we have here. All right. Okay. Smooth the God. Yeah, I gotta you definitely make your way through here, brother. I think you will enjoy it. All right, what else we got? Yeah, Mandy's comment. Yeah, I mentioned earlier Mandy's comment about conversation in the barbershop. We're going to have a show coming up. It's going to just be a couple times a month, conversations with my barber. My barber is actually going to be in it, in the show. And you're going to kind of see really what goes down in the barbershop. Some of the shit we really talk about. It's going to be cool. But I just want to be clear. We're not going to just be talking about, it will be some occult stuff. I want to be clear. It's a little different flavor. We're going to be talking about some politics. We're going to be talking shit. We'll be talking about sports, current event in the news. This is just real shit that comes up in the barbershop and some other stuff. Girls, female. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And the conversation had came up. Actually, me and my barber have been talking about it, and he thinks it's a great idea, and he's really amped to do it. But there'll be more to it in the setting. There's gonna be some other things added to it, but I think it'll be cool. It'll be kind of fun. This damn thing. It'll definitely be kind of fun. But I just want to be clear. So it's gonna be kind of a little bit different from this platform here. It's not going to be this. So I kind of want to try to expand out and do some different things, kind of have fun with it, instead of just, always doing this type of stuff. All right. Sister Yvette, greetings. It's 2 a.m. in France. Yeah, I saw your email earlier, your message earlier. Yeah, so have fun in France. So I'm not sure if you're still with us or you fell asleep, but have fun there in France. Be safe. My piece, I definitely going to get back to email. I will give you a buzz in reference to what you emailed me about. I didn't forget. All right. Dark occultist, Ronald Noon, esoteric, the inner meanings versus exoteric and the outer superficial meanings. Yes. The Voodoo Gnostic Workbook is a very powerful book to work with. Yeah, and that's the book, in case you came in late. It can be a little pricey to get. You can find them used. The Voodoo Gnostic Workbook. Michael Bertaux. Bertiaux. It's a big read, obviously. But it's like 2,000. I think it's. I'm sorry, 2,000. It's about 700 pages. It deals. There's a whole section here, even on an esoteric aspect of approaching the Egyptian teachings. It's a very powerful book, a lot of information in it. I was just focusing on just the esoterical section of voodoo, but I've done some good work out of here. I mean, I've done some money ritualistic work out of here. There's some sex energy work you can do out of here that's very powerful. If need be, which hopefully nobody needs to do that. There's some destructive work you can do out of here if need possible. This ain't shit for light fluffinators. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm not saying that just to pop off at the mouth and talk shit. If you do not have power, it's just not a book for you. If you're not a critical thinker, it's not the work for you. I'm gonna be honest with you, and that's why I was pointing out all those aforementioned things. If you need somebody to hold your hand, if you need, like, it kills me when somebody sends me an email and says, do you think that I should join this or do that? What I think is irrelevant, because one, I'm not going to lie to you, it's fucking irrelevant to me. Two, it's not a matter of what I think. It's a matter of, one, is it productive for you? Have you really put some thought into it? That's the key. Okay. But yeah, it's an excellent work. Okay, Sister Yvette, I think you were still here with us as of 8:22. You typed this in earlier. We have to do the work ourselves. That way the fruits of our labor is that much sweeter. And that's true, because I've always said, when you're on this path and you're carrying out work, there's no greater feeling when you're done and get results. And you could look back on reflected and say, look, I did that myself. It's a great feeling, as opposed to when you're part of these systems that are controlled, where you have to follow a certain specific way of doing something. Yeah, you might get a sense of accomplished, but it's not going to be the same feeling or energy when you set out to do it yourself. And I apply that to, and anybody that's been a client of mine and spiritual readings or consultations are doing work, you know how I deal with you. And I simply tell you when we're done, look, you can take this information and do absolutely nothing with it. One, I really don't care. And I don't say that to be disrespectful. That's the truth. But if you take the information and you apply it to self, and whatever information comes through in a reading or a consultation, if you got to do a ritual for a particular archetype, what I'll do is tell you, this is what you need to gather up. This is what you need to get. And here's a general idea how to do it. You don't need to do it the exact way I'm going to tell you, but here's kind of how you want to do it. So that's how this works. And anybody knows if you're really dealing with a quote unquote teacher, they're going to teach you to do it for yourself, not do it for you and then say you need to pay me ridiculous amounts of money to do it. As I said before, the only thing I get compensated for is my time, because my time, as I said, utilizing your time is magic in itself. My time as a magician, time is more precious to you on the physical more so than anything when you're able to master and manipulate it. So that old saying, you've heard that adage, time is money. Well, that applies on certain levels on the esoterical aspect. You just got to really look at it from a certain perspective. But that is the difference in regards to Yvette's statement. It is way sweeter when you could look back and go, man, I did this shit myself. Don't mean you might have had some instruction or guidance, but as long as you carried it out, put in the work yourself, it's a great feeling. And that's the difference between this path. Gypsy Goddess, peace. I don't know if you checked your email. I responded back to your email. Believe this morning. So check it and get back to me on what I wrote to you. Okay. What else we got? Stardale. The first part of your question, can you break a soul tie? You might have to give me a more clearer perspective of your definition of that, but I'll answer the second part of your question. Maybe you typed in something down there. When you type in, do you worship Satan and is he real? Not in the religious sense, no. Let's first get into the etymology of the word. The word Satan means adversary. When you get into the literal characters of God and Satan, or God and the devil, these were just representing characteristics that reside within us, okay? If you're asking the question, do I believe there's this character called Satan or the devil, there's many different personifications and spirits that represent the archetype. No, I don't worship one specific character called Satan or the devil. And the aspect of what it represents as the adversary is very real, because the adversary represents, again, the part of ourselves that's a nonconformist. And that's what, when you use the concept in religion of Satan and God, Satan was the adversary to God or religion, meaning that thought process. Again, remember, we have to look at the esoterical aspect of it. When you're looking at the exoteric, it's only as the power you give it is the power that it contains. So it's like if a Christian believes that there's this spook God that resides up in the heavens, and they do, and they believe he has this son Jesus, and they formulated all these concepts out of mythology, and some of the concepts of Satanism come out of mythology. It becomes as real to the individual as they make it. And that we don't want to do that, because that's the same thing religion does. Now, in my opinion, a lot of these modern day Satanist groups are more religious than religious Christian groups. No, I don't sit there and externally worship some being called Satan or the devil, but I do understand the aspect of what it represents and what it actually is. Now, when I said there's different archetypes that represent the adversary, right? We have to understand what they mean and represent, because some people will put them all together. Satan, Lucifer, as if they're all the same thing. Azazel, the one removed. These all represent different aspects of this adversarial force. Now, when you get back into ancient Egypt, how I tied on, and I can only speak for myself, the true prince of darkness, because of what it embodies and represents as an archetype, would be Set. You understand? So who they're calling in religion, Christians call in religion Satan or the devil, or the adversary. When you go back and trace it back to something more factual, you would have to connect that to the archetype or the deity they call in ancient Egypt, Set, the real prince of darkness. So no, I don't acknowledge the modern day definitions of, in the last couple of 100 years, of what Satan is, because that's just, to me, more religious and fictitious or on the same level as how a Christian approaches God and Christianity. But that's how I work with it. So I can't speak for anybody else. And the thing is, it works for me because it's gotten me the results I need to separate from all the nonsense and the bullshit. So now let me throw this also in there. So if somebody is working with some concept of what they have accepted a reality as Satan to be and they're getting results, then power to you. But we always have to understand, and that's why I'm saying this, because our ideology may not line up with somebody else's doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Remember, there is no right or wrong in this path. The only thing that's right is what works for you. So I can only speak on how I conceptualize that concept. So the first thing that reverberates through mine when I hear the word Satan, I hear adversary. So I utilize that concept. I would consider myself an adversary to all the mainstream bullshit, because when I say mainstream bullshit, all the conformist things that are forced upon us from religion to how we should think, what we should dress, how we should act, morals, all of those preconceived things that are programmed into us, I apply that adversary concept. Now, when dealing with another aspect of that, let's say Lucifer, and dealing with Luciferianism, as I mentioned before, Lucifer means light bearer, right? Luciferianism are individuals or the illuminated ones that we're trying to seek that intellect, all these things that we're talking about. We believe in that self-deification process, that we are the greatest deity. And that's what an adversary represents. They are adverse to the notion of worshiping something, right? So it's always going to be one of the key elements of this path is always going to be centered around being a path of immortality. Vampirism deals with that, right? It deals with high levels of obtaining immortality, that's a whole nother story. But the first part of your question, can you break a soul tie? Or maybe see if you type something down. I want to make sure I understand what perception you're coming from. You're talking about somebody trying to bind or control your soul. So I don't want to go into a whole breakdown on it. Maybe there's something you type down later and we'll go back to that. But that's how I approach that. So hopefully that gives some clarification. All right. Mandy types in, the indoctrination is real, big bro. Crazy. I've seen so much, not only myself, but so much and so many, and so blessed to feel recognized at this point in my life. Yes. And remember, the indoctrination for all of us, nobody was obsolete of it. Even if you didn't come up or you weren't raised in a real religious family, we were exposed to it in society because it's in the schools. It's in shit. It's even in some of the job places, right? It's in sports, right? They have indoctrinated us from day one, not just with religion, society in general has pretty much dictated to control every aspect of your life, what you should eat. They monitor your behaviors. You don't really have choices. You're given the illusion of choices. Just because you watch a commercial and you see an abundance of products being advertised, from clothing to food to whatever, don't confuse that for having free will and choices. They're really still just giving you a wide range of the same thing, but it's all going back to them having that control. So the indoctrination starts from the simplest things, from the food you eat to the educational systems you attend. Obviously, religion plays a strong part in that indoctrination because, they say in the Constitution that you shouldn't mix church and state or religion and state, but they do it all the time. So there's contradictions, there's indoctrinations, and it starts at a very early age. You're exposed to it. So, I love people say, well, I wasn't really exposed to religion. You were subconsciously, because we live in a society where it's encoded all around us. It's there. It's encoded in politics. It's encoded, again, in the school system. It's in the educational systems. It's encoded on your job or your workplaces, right? And now with all this shit that's been going on with with Colin Kaepernick and the flag and all these protests that started, now that thing has gotten twisted. And let me say this, I've gotten some emails on that. Let me just give you my quick thoughts on that. And then I'm going to leave that alone since it just popped up. Here's my thoughts on that real quick. and I'm gonna keep it brief. First and foremost, okay, one, I personally, I respect the country, I respect the flag, and I say that, and so don't flip out when you hear me say that. I understand there are some things to consider in that. So I'm not saying it's not a perfect country, it's not a perfect government. There's some dirt there, but one, before you flip off on the deep end, go to some of these other third world countries where you wouldn't even be able to express your opinion. Okay, that's number one. But having said that, as far as Kaepernick's side, I understand his side too. And there's some key things that are being left out. Let me say what I mean by that is, for all the people that think that the protest is about the flag, it's not. And people keep losing sight of that. I don't know why. He made it clear the protest is about injustices against police brutality against black people. All right. We keep losing sight of that. Now, here's some important key elements. I had a conversation with some dude that really got hot in the collar because they let their personal racism and hate control their emotions. I said, do you know the history? Most people did not or do not know that Colin Kaepernick went to a Marine and asked the proper, respectful way to protest. So this taking a knee thing was instruction given to him by a U.S. Marine, and nobody talks about that. Then when I brought that up, the dude said, well, what about the socks he wore with the blue socks with the pigs on them? He made that clear when he was asked about it the very same day after that incident. He wore those socks not to protest against good police, and he didn't say all police were corrupt. He wore those socks as protest against the corrupt police department. And another thing people are not forgetting, do people realize he is half white? His mother is white. So if this was a race thing, and if this was an anti-white, anti-American thing, he'd be totally disrespecting himself and his mother. Keep in mind, he is half white, and people keep forgetting that, and his mother is 100% Caucasian, okay? So look, before you get emotional and reactive with this good old boy redneck country in the U.S., it's not even about that. You're missing the point. Now, I can only speak on my stance. I go to baseball games, sporting events. I stand up. I remove my hat because, like I said, I do respect, because let's not negate, regardless. We can sit here and get into the history of the country. We can get into the corruptness. We can get into the politics. We understand there was slavery and there was racism, but here's the reality. And you may not like what I'm about to say. I couldn't give a fuck. You live in 2018. Don't give me this post-traumatic slave syndrome bullshit, because I'm not buying it. Bottom line is this: you have certain freedoms now, and certain of your own blood ancestors sacrificed their blood to fight for this country. So I stand for that. That's my stance on it. So that's just me. If I'm at an event, I respect the anthem and the flag, but I do understand the other side of it. I want to make that clear. And I think with a little bit of communication, looking at this from both sides, the ignorance would disappear. But people get caught up in their emotions. It's hilarious. And when you get caught up in the emotional part of it, what tends to happen is you don't think clear, and you start speaking irrational, and you start speaking nonsense. All right. So I've received a few emails on that a couple of weeks ago. Look, you're entitled to your opinion. I respect everybody's opinion, but don't get mad when somebody doesn't agree with your shit. That's all I'm saying. So that's my take on it. Don't really want to talk about that no more, but anyway. All right, what else we got here? All right. All right, Mandy had to leave. Cool, peace. Only types on this perfect timing. I'm feeling very esoteric tonight, moving tonight. Yeah, well, that's kind of the energy I had earlier, but I'm getting ready to go into some work too, coming up with this too, which I'm not going to elaborate on here. We'll talk about that another time. But yeah, that energy is definitely, I agree with you. All right, what else we got? Hold on. All right, skip. Okay. I'm skipping just some of the conversation you guys are having. JSS, HBHSS. That's a long one. What's up, peace? Magic is about sex, ending, occult, science, mysticism. Yeah. And there's rituals in there for that. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you mess with some of those rituals, be careful. Because there's pure lust rituals you can do to just attract. But be careful what you're attracting. Because if you might be bringing a certain energy to you that can be something you don't want there for a long, long time. So just be cautious of that. And approaching when doing that work, make sure you're clear in your intent. I talked about that a while back on a video, one of the videos. If you're doing a working for that, be clear the intent that it's just pure lust. If it's to gain a permanent partner, whatever it might be, it's got to be clear, because I've seen that fuck a lot of people up. All right. JS, I'm just going to call you JSS. That's too long to go through all that. What is a good ritual I can do for prosperity and removing obstacles? There's actually abundance of them you can do. One, you want to focus, obviously, that type of work. It's good to focus with pathway, road clearing, deities, and energies. The Holy Death, for an example, I can attest to some of the stuff that I've done. Again, that I think can be effective for anybody, really, in general. A Holy Death, simple ritual to do with her, for an example. Get yourself some parchment paper, image of the Holy Death. I prefer always work with the black one. That's just me. I feel, working with the black aspect of the Holy Death can be utilized for any ritual working. Get a piece of parchment paper and write down in detail and list your blockages. What are your things that you're trying to obtain financially, as you put it. And after you sit there and give it some good thought and write down intently on there, I would fold that parchment paper up and put it underneath her image, right? And get you a black candle. And in the occult store, they have La Santissima Muerte Holy Death Oil. And you can find it in a botanica or an occult store. And charge that candle up with that Holy Death Oil. And burn that black candle in front of the image of the Holy Death. Now, if you're using the glass candle or one of the bigger candles, as that's continuously burning, you can visualize and meditate in front of it, your list and goals that you're trying to obtain. But here's the key. Also, when that candle is done, make a pact. Really, you're making a pact with yourself, but make a pact with the Holy Death. When these things are accomplished, something simple as a pact can be continuously leaving a candle there for her. An aloe plant. Now, another thing you can do with the aloe plant, when you're doing intense workings, you can keep it to the left side of her. And this really deals with the shift in your psyche or your brain power. For intense works, you keep it to the left side of her as an offering, which is really to activate this here. And for lesser or just basic work you're doing, keep it to the right side. What that does is psychologically, it kind of activates certain portions of brain power. Trust me when I tell you. And you may not be aware of it at first, but it is. Trust me when I tell you. So make a pact or an agreement. It's really with self, but it's a reminder. And anytime you slip or fall with that pact, you'll be reminded, and it keeps the mind sharp. That's one, option. You can do stuff with Papa Legba, right? You could create your own ritual. Another good basic thing with Papa Legba, you can get a red candle, get some candy, put it on a plate, charge that red candle up with prosperity oil. You can I like to use for that 7 African powers. Charge it up and ask your roads and your pathways to be clear. Be specific in your intent. Candle magic. There's many for money magic. I find candle magic to be the best. A book I would recommend that will give you some good money rituals on candle magic is Charmaine Day's The Magic Candle. There's several different rituals you utilize there with money. And Raymond Buckland too, candle magic. Raymond Buckland's book is good because he gives you more of there's a mysticism aspect dealing with like Hebrew mysticism, and then he gives you the occult. He gives you 2 ways to do it. He's got several rituals in there. Raymond Buckland's practical candle burning. He's got two volumes. There's a multitude of rituals you can look into in there. Some other stuff, but I'm not going to get into all that in detail here. Just throw some basic stuff at you. What I also do, and I'm not just doing that to throw in a promo, I do give people more in-depth. When stuff comes up in consultations or reading, I actually give you in-depth rituals you can actually do for money magic. You can add your own flair to it, but I'm not going to get into all that here. And I'm not just saying that to promo or segue in a consultation. I'm just telling you the reality of it, because if I sat here and did that, it would just be pointless. But some areas to push you in this book here too, the Voodoo Gnostic Workbook has, matter of fact, right here. Where is it? On page, where is it? There's one for success, love, and sex, and then finances. Actually, in the first section, part 1, you will see a few. Hold on. Page 4. There's a ritual, how to get exactly what you want, and it deals with all those areas in life. So this book tonight that we're going through has some specific rituals dealing in there. Now, I'm going to tell you this. When you contact the hoodoo voodoo spirits, there's one working that requires, and I have it right here. Let me show you this shit. This shit is straight fire water. First time I did this, almost felt like I almost burned the skin off of my fucking chest. But hold on. Let me show you something. Some of the work in this book, they're going to talk about certain spirits or alcohol that's utilized in these rituals. This one here is a Caribbean cane rum. It's a brown rum, not your usual clear rum. I only use this in some of the work out of this book. This shit is 151 proof. And you do have to intake some of it. So I'm pointing that out. There's a connection and a symbolism with the ritual and the intensity and the fire from this. And when you're contacting these spirits through the points and when they come through, I would really tell you to be prepared for that. Because if you just, let me give you an example. If you just find yourself, for no reason, your body starts to just twerk and jerk, for an example, is the best way I could describe it. Or you feel a strong energy or presence coming on, that's usually because, one, the spirits are making themselves known and they're present, and you're actually tapping into their energy, especially when you're working with the symbols and the sigils in this book and setting up the points. Now, when I work the hoodoo voodoo altar for rituals that you're talking about, I actually have a separate table that I just set up for that, and I break it down. I don't connect it to anything else. I would also recommend people that when you work with this, I always do this. Clear your space when you're done. I'm telling you, it's very important because that energy can tend to stay around, kind of linger, for lack of a better word. What do I mean by that? Because you could be going into doing other work and you still can feel that energy still there. So when I say clear your sacred space, a simple way, after I do hoodoo voodoo work, I do something simple. I get a clear bowl with sea salt and water, and I just sprinkle my whole area. I mean, the whole parameter, everything. That's just a very simple method. In the book, it refers to this rum, and then there's the one bottle that they refer to one of the rituals. I went to the alcohol, so that shit is over $100. literally. And I forgot the name of it, but it's in there. You'll see it in there if you have the book or anybody gets it. But working with it, it deals with some shit. And when I first drank that, I'll be honest with you, usually when I drink rum, it's when I'm in the spirit and it doesn't bother me. I can drink a whole bottle of rum when possessed at a ritual, and I don't even remember drinking it and the whole bottle going. But when you're doing a ritual, when the spirit's not fully there and you have to drink that shit, motherfucker almost burned my chest hair. Not my chest hairs. I don't have chest hair, but almost burned the skin off my chest. So the rituals where it requires you, because you make kind of like a pact or connection with the spirit, I advise you don't put a lot in there. Drink a small amount until you get kind of used to it. But just to push you in the right direction, that's kind of what I would suggest. Only working with some sigil magic and baking a cake. That's pretty good. Let me see. I don't know why that caught. Oh, damn. Skipped on me. All right, Dark Occultist typed in. Yeah, when I was talking about tradition earlier. Fuck tradition. Tradition usually keeps people bound and controlled. To truly master yourself, one has to look at all these traditions as a means to get what they need to master the self. And that's exactly. Again, the essence of the tradition is there. It don't mean, it just means don't be trapped in the tradition. I mean, I respect certain aspects of the tradition, but like Dark Occultist just typed in, Ron Noon typed in, it's always about mastering the self. You can't get caught up in it. You do get bound by it because like I'm saying, if there a lot of people might hear this information we're talking about tonight, quote unquote, that are from a traditional path of voodoo, they wouldn't agree with this. And because there's that power and structure too, don't kid yourself or bullshit yourself. A lot of it deals with money because, you have the Hugon, the Mambo, the Bokor, right? And I understand the structure. You do need to have elders need to have a certain level of knowledge. I get all that. And I don't ever dispute that aspect of the tradition, but let's be for real. You do have some people that are corrupt and abuse that power to use the control mechanism. Because as I said, again, I always pose the question to people that are in them. I say, okay, you're in this traditional system. At what point, again, do you let go of the master's hand and you become the master yourself? And they don't have an answer for that. Because usually that's an exoterical person that needs to be led by the hand, told what to do. They like to be told what to do. Some people can't do shit until they're told to do something. Well, that's not how we are on this path. We don't wait around for anybody to tell us to do shit. We get off our own butt and we do what we need to do for self. And that's what this path is about. Again, hence the term path of self-mastery. It's not the path of somebody else doing it for me. It's not the path of following something or somebody to do it for me. It's not the path of sitting around and waiting for somebody to do it for me. It's the path of self-mastery. I don't know what else. I mean, how else can we put it? Okay. Okay, what else we got? Yeah, dangerous, man. We got fluffinators. As we do. There's a lot of fluffinators. All right. Okay, only typed in. Just pulled the Four of Wands in this Darth Tarot. It is the completion card. This group is moving to the higher level spiritually. Yeah, and even working with, you bring that up, even working with the voodoo divination system, even the tarot, I'm doing some work with that. I'm doing some spiritual offerings with that currently right now because, as I said, that's helped me to see areas in my life that I need to improve on. And what it really brings realization to is shit that you weren't aware of that you needed to improve on, that you didn't think was a problem and an issue. And that's the beauty of this path because, you have that ability to tap into that. And I could tell you, man, you're working with these type of dark spirits, energies. It's a powerful thing. And it's again, always have the respect for it. Because if you don't have, you got to have respect for yourself. always have the respect for it. When I say approach it with respect, not religious spookyism, but with respect of the volatileness and the nature of the energy of these spirits. So never go into it like, you know, you the all-knowing shit. Because remember, you are contacting, you are accessing different energy, right? And this is energy that is facilitated through you. So have the utmost respect for it, because if you go into it half-assed, some shit can go awry. Trust me when I tell you. Yeah, Oni types in, that's a good point. The Voodoo Pantheon are fast with the right service. I work with Marasa, Kaufu, and Ozeli Danto. Yes, and let's talk about that real quick. The Marasa, talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago, whereas known as the twins. I received that initiation a few years back. Very similar in Voodoo, very similar in Yoruba, or West African traditions, because really essence and origin the same thing. As we know, the Marasa are childlike spirits, right? They're very volatile, very energetic, but very compassionate and loving in nature when you access that type of energy. They definitely have to be appeased a certain way. Just like, you know, Papa Legua, toys, candy. Now, you might ask yourself, and let's clarify this. In these traditions, offerings are a very strong aspect of the spiritual practice. So I want to clarify the concept of giving offerings, because how does that apply, and how should we look at that and approach it on this path? So let me clarify this. One, we don't sacrifice or hurt any animals on this path. Now, they do that in traditional systems. Now, again, it's not that I'm against animal sacrifice, because at one time when I was in the traditional aspects of it, I participated in it. I'm just saying this now today, from where I'm at now, I don't see the point and the necessity of it. But having said that, I want to make it clear I don't knock or I don't judge anybody that does that, because I do understand the concept of what the animal sacrifice represents in those spiritual traditions. So I want to make that clear. When we're talking about offerings in this aspect of Voodoo, we're talking about more or less tangible things. For an example, you'll find there's foods and objects. For an example, for some of the female Loa spirits, you can leave them mirrors like perfumes. There's those type of offerings, because what that does is bridge the gap between, quote unquote, the physical and the spiritual, right? And it helps unlock that particular spirit or energy that also represents a certain aspect of your character and nature. And remember, the archetypes always represent, if they come up especially in a system of divination, whatever they represent, that's the area in your life you need to focus on that energy deals with. So if you are dealing with, for an example, a blockage in your life, you might get an archetype that connects to that. Now, and what Oni puts here, the Marasa, the Kaufu, who we know, and I'd be careful messing with Kaufu. Kaufu is the darker, more intense side of Papa Legba, his twin brother, as they say in some traditions, propagated at the crossroads. But I'm going to mention this, and I want to be clear. If you mess with Kaufu, if you really want to tap into that power and energy of Kaufu, I would suggest, and do this in the right place at the right time, at midnight at a crossroad. There's a simple ritual and offering you can do and bring to the crossroad and invoke, by way of invocation, the spirit of Kaufu. But Kaufu should only be really fucked with, one, if you've educated yourself. And as I'm talking about it right now, I'm getting dizzy as shit. You should only propagate Kaufu for intense workings where you've tried previous things prior to it and it didn't work. If you are intentionally invoking Kaufu, no, that's fine. But understand that's a spirit that can linger and stay around and hard to rid yourself of. Because I found people that have access to Kaufu and then kind of regretted it later, because it's that type of shit. Like, I ain't going away. There are ways. The same thing. You have to go back to the crossroads if you feel like you've tapped into too much of an intensity energy with that, and kind of release that energy, there's a ritual you can do to try to, well, not try, to release the energy from being around you. Now, if you have more discipline and control and you've been working with it and you've done it a certain way, then make sure you have that, because cow fu is not something I would randomly just, access for mundane shit. Cow fu is good for destructive magic. He represents destructive magic. So when you're doing works of destruction, he actually feeds off it. When I say he activates that vengeful aggressiveness of your nature. But an excellent voodoo spirit to work with for destruction. That's I'm kind of gonna leave it there. And then Urzili Danto, you might see images of her, Santa Barbara Africana. You'll see her with the, and I'm working with that right now. Urzili Danto is a man, intense spirit. As we talked about in the past, a powerful feminine energy, protector of females, protector of lesbians, but protector of females in general, very vengeful, and really there's two things you got to look at with Urzili Danto. As a male, she will lash out in vengeance at men that are harmful to females, but men that rever and work with that spirit because they have love for the feminine energy. And that definitely how I approach it. She definitely can access a portion of you to bring great benefits. So I know you mentioned those spirits, Oni, and I know you got experience in that. So I'm not directing that to you. I'm speaking in general. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Don't fuck with it if you don't know what you're doing. And I mean that, especially cow fu, because like I said, I'm not trying to sound spooky now, but I'm just talking about, when I even talk about cow fu, I get lightheaded and dizzy and all types of shit. But yeah, so that's why I said earlier, remember this, if you're a fluffinator, this ain't the shit for you. I'm gonna tell you that right now. If you're on that vibe with, I want to just see and check it out. Don't. This ain't a Curious George methodology here. I'd only fuck with this if you've educated yourself and you're comfortable and you're secure in doing it. That's when you do it. Don't just do it just to let me see what it's like. Let me check it out. No. Get yourself grounded in it first. Get a good understanding and mess with it. Again, I'm not saying all this to scare people or talk shit or whatever. I'm saying this from experience, and I'm saying it from what I've seen with others. It's not one of them things, and let me just see what happens, because that could be detrimental, okay? Yeah. What else we got here? This damn fucking chat. Hold on. Why is this not moving? Thing freezing up here. Oh, there we go. I don't know. I might have froze up there for a second. I'm not sure what happened. Hold on. Oh, I lost my spot. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Dambala Widu and Aidu Widu, Dambala Widu's wife, when we just did this last ritual, it's funny you bring that up. I actually have a video I haven't uploaded yet. We're having a hard time getting the file. Before we went into the working with Papa Legbo on that last ritual, we invoked Dambala Widu first, because in a lot of it's always good to invoke the energy of Dambala Widu when doing any type of voodoo ritual first, to ensure the success of that ritual because of what the energy of Dambala Widu represents. So we had a whole altar set up with Dambala Widu sigil. We had a plate with a offering of white flour and a white egg on top of it, and that all ties into working with the energy of Dambala Widu. And then we did an invocation. actually in the Benin language, and there was a little bit actually Creole in there too. Damballa Weedu and Aida Weedu, they represent all of those aspects in this system, the masculine and the feminine. Damballa Weedu is the facilitator that kind of keeps it all functioning, the conductor, the source. You understand? When you understand what that represents, for an example, they would connect that to Olodumare in, let's say, in Ifa. But I found Damballa Weedu to be a little power and energy, to be a little more thorough, and that's just me. I found that working with the Voodoo synchronization of it as opposed to the Ifa is more powerful, in my opinion. That's just me. But again, I could say it's nothing to fuck with. So yeah, when you take it back to Damballa, Weedu and Aida Weedu, you have to look at that as a representation, an aspect of what brings, quote unquote, if you tie it into the Baphomet sciences, it's bringing that masculine and feminine, that equilibrium, that totality. They represent that as above, so below. All of those things are connected to that energy. And it represents the origin or the point or the facilitator where the energy permeates from. Really, in essence, then you've got to reconnect that back to yourself. How does that apply to myself? Okay. But I know when we did that at the ritual that we just recently did, it was crazy because I think I mentioned this on the last video. Brother Jack, who did the invocation, right before we started and began, he started to keel over, and I saw it coming. I saw the energy started to overwhelm him a little bit. And obviously, Brother Jack, who was of Haitian descent, so he's got that naturally in his blood. So he was standing before the altar, and he had to pause for a minute until he almost keeled over. And I'd asked him, was he all right? And as soon as we got in the room, that he was tapping in to the energy. Take that natural link to it. Those things start to happen normally. But there was a certain energy in there that was more. The best way I can describe it was kind of like, I don't know if you want to say the calm before the storm, but it was like just preparing. It was a little more tranquil, but yet there was a high level of awareness. Then when the second portion of the ritual, when dealing with Papa Legba, obviously that was a lot more intense because of the structure of the ritual and how it went down. But again, it all ties into understanding and facilitating of how to work with the energies, the vibration and frequency of them, the intensity of them, what they represent, and how you can access them, facilitate them through you for your needs. Just like it said in the first portion of the book that we were reading, you're going to activate and create and facilitate these energies. Now, when it was referencing the 8 points, right? You will manifest them and make them, you will create these magical entities and make them work for you. That's the difference between this method of voodoo and traditional aspect. Okay. All right. What else we got? All right. Okay. JSS typed in, my neck was really subluxated, causing my depression. Okay. I had to get my C1 vertebrae and spine in correct alignment to relieve the pressure off my brainstem. Wow. Okay. All right. Maybe you type something more in down there. But that's, yeah, okay. Oshun only types in, Oshun always allows confidence in all people. You just have to tune in. Well, that's, yes, I can attest to that because that is the Orishi that rules my head. So I can definitely attest to the Oshun energy. But I tell you this with Oshun, and I want to make this clear. Oshun is definitely, when you tune in, definitely gives you results. And I reflect back because I've been through a lot with that, and when I was dealing with Ifa at the time. It's a nurturing, loving energy, but it's a volatile. There's a warrior aspect of Oshun. There's a wrathful, vengeful aspect of Oshun. That's the energy of Oshun that I have. I don't have that. It's not just about that materialistic stuff and, And that's a part of it because you can work with it to get all types of results. So I'm going to go a little bit more in on your comment on Oshun. I know you use the term confidence. She can create that sense of confidence in all people. But I know the type of energy I work with Oshun, it can, it's a more vengeful, it's a powerful, it's a warrior type of energy. It deals with, you know, witches and warlocks because she has that nature too. There's the paths of Oshun that are not really talked about. So when I found out that I was Oshun, everybody, I think I mentioned this before, everybody was saying Shango, Shango. And even at the time, my godmother thought, before I actually found out, that it was Shango. And she was a little thrown off when it was Oshun. I kind of really wasn't, when I went into it, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not saying this now because of where I'm at now, I really wasn't going in with any preconceived notions. I just wanted to know in that spiritual system. So I went before the 3 Babalawo, and that's the right way to do it, by the way. I think I mentioned that before. If you do that, I know some padrinos or madrinas will do it by themselves. That's not the right way to do it. The correct way is to go before 3 Babalawos in the Pele trade. If you're not doing it that way, it's not the correct way. According to the traditional aspect. Even when you get crowned, and if you're involved with a certain Babalawos, they might give you another set of warriors too. And I've mentioned that before because some of them don't accept the warriors from a madrina or a padrino as being authentic. And I'm just telling you that's how it goes in tradition. So they feel like you need to receive your warriors from, you know, by way of a priest of Orula being a Babalawo, father of the mysteries, right? So I went into it with no preconceived notions. But then when I understood the paths of Oshun, because everybody on the surface always just knows her connection with sexuality and materialistic things. And that's there, and it's strong, don't get me wrong. But then there's this other side of Oshun, a warrior, a destructive Oshun, where she can be kind of like a Kali and destroy all aspects of yourself that need to be destroyed and then resurrect the things that need to be resurrected. So there's that aspect. I just want to be clear on that. That can go a multitude of ways. But yes, when you work with Oshun correctly, you can tap in and get that confidence. Wesley Snipe, that's a good question, typed in earlier. The thing that gets me with the question, why did we come here, is, did we choose our parents? Now, when I answer this question, know that this is a question really you have to raise yourself up to the realization of yourself. Now, yes, you've heard in many different circles, people will say, it sounds good, but they'll say you chose to come here. Yes, you chose your parents. Everything that you're doing now, you chose, right? Now, we don't really have any way to verify that. I mean, I've heard different methodologies on it. The only way you can get the clear-cut answer to that, did you or did you not choose? Yes, some of us, and I want to say this because it's not the same for everybody is what I'm saying. Some did choose to come here, meaning this realm. Some did choose their parents, right? But who and what, and if you are one of those, the only way you're going to understand those questions is by going outside of the physical, person, place, or thing, and you're going to have to tap into the quote unquote the astral or the spiritual realm to get the answers to those questions with certain archetypes that can assist in that. Now you got this other craze going on, and I'm not saying, when I say the astral plane and typing into those higher spiritual realms, I'm not talking about it's necessary to do DTM and go on a trip, because that seems to be the big, thing that everybody's on this kick now, doing ayahuasca and DTM and activating the molecule that can put you into that spiritual state. Look, I'm not knocking if that's what you do, and I know people have tripped out on DTM and shrooms and other things, and they've had great experiences. I'm also telling you it's not necessary. If you know what you're doing on this path and know how to work the systems, you can obtain that same methodology without having to utilize anything to activate that. I'm bringing both of those things into the equation of your question is because to get the answer to that, you have to tap into that aspect spiritually. Because other than that, we're going to be theorizing about those type of questions. And a lot of it I hear is conjecture and theory. You know, you hear this story that in other circles, in the lesser spiritual circle, we're here because we're descendants of the 200 fallen angels. I mean, that shit all sounds good. You understand? But you have to also factor in, this is not your first time here. So if it's not your first time here, how do you really trace your origins to who you are while you got in and who your real parents are? Because in other spiritual systems, it said you must come here and keep coming here until you master the lower self, right? When you start dealing with some of those circles. So there is a wide range of dynamics to that question. But as you do your work and you grow spiritually and you go intently into your visualizations, your meditation, and your spiritual work, you will get clarity and answers to those questions. You understand? You will get more clear-cut explanations to those questions. So I say that to say, yeah, you definitely need to raise yourself up to the answer to that question. Okay. I mean, Omar, even though this was at Wesley, I'll read this and kind of expound just a second on it. He types in, Earth is a prison planet, is a schooling experience with suffering. Yeah, all that is there. I wouldn't just look at, I'm not saying that that's how you meant it, Omar, but I wouldn't just look at it in its totality like that, but that definitely is a part of it. Your time here should be spent on mastering yourself. It is a schooling, and in that suffering, there's tremendous growth. So yes, that is a part of it. That is how you should look at it and connect with it. But I would, again, well, make this clear, I would really, really go into internal work. There's things you can do to actually get the clear-cut answers to those questions, and tap in with different archetypes that connect with that. Vampirism is an excellent, astral traveling using the vampirism method is an excellent method of tapping into those forces on the astral plane that can give you that guidance and information that you're seeking for answers to questions like that. You will not get an answer to a question like that confounded to person, place, or thing, three-dimensional. It's just not, it's not going to happen. So you need to tap into your subjective realms with a plural and seek out the answers to those questions. Okay. Go wrap this up soon. Sorry. Apologize for yawning. Only types in some Babalawo are astounding at self-taught diviners nowadays. Study and sweat is how you master any form of deviation, but it's a lifelong journey too. A wise man already knows that he don't know shit. And that's true. Yeah. And, you know, again, the whole concept with that power structure, and some of them might get astonished because when money's coming out of your pocket, you know what I mean? Let's be real. When money comes out of your pocket, at the end of the day, pisses some of these babalawos off. So when you're doing it for yourself, it's taking money out of their pocket. Okay, Straight Pan. I know that was early. Damn, 9 o'clock. I know you said you was in North Carolina. Good to see that you wrote it out. And y'all don't know where you at in North Carolina. Just out of curiosity to compare what they're saying on the news. I don't know, maybe you typed in something down there. If you could, just out of curiosity, because you're actually there and you can kind of clarify how bad is the damage and the flooding? Are they over exaggerating it on the news, or are some areas worse than others, or vice versa? I'm sure you probably have a better grasp on it. I know you could probably only tell me from the area you're in, but just out of curiosity, if you are still here, I would like to know. All right. Yeah, 8-pointed stars are powerful. And when you look at the chaos symbol, it has the 8 points. That's a symbol or a sigil I will draw frequently when I'm doing ritualistic work. I tend to draw it over my altar and a lot of invocations because what it represents to me, that 8-pointed chaos star or symbol, is always remember all things have its point of origin out of chaos. So that a pep energy, I like to work with that a lot. And actually today, I just, you're going to laugh. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Hand me that bag right on the counter there if you could. I'm going to show you something. Speaking of a pep. Let me show you real quick how the mind works. Just hand me the bag. You got the plastic bag right to your left. Plastic bag. There you go. Let me just throw this out there. As we know, we're approaching close to Halloween time, right? I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to come up with this, but so I was out there today. My instinct just drew me by. So I'm getting ready to create something with a pet, right? You'll get the visual. I haven't started. As you can see, I just got it today, right? These are black serpents, right? I haven't consecrated any of this stuff. I'm going to show you what this, look at this, right? It's Halloween time, people. Where did I get this stuff? At Walmart. So I'm going to do magic from Walmart. I had this there. So picture, I can't lay it out because I can't put it all in my hands. And there's going to be a layout with this, with the zigzag. Also, when you look at that, when Dumbbell Weedo represents something, it's a whole nother story. But something to throw out there right now, because being Halloween time, you can go into these stores and there's stuff you can find for your altar. You just got to be in attune to it. And I wasn't looking for it. I just happened to go buy it. An immediate thing that came to my mind was, because I had something that I was going to deal with working with a pet. So I can use this symbolism and deal with that, with the chaos symbol. So I'm going to have something set up with the chaos symbol, that there, the serpents representing a pep, in a working or a ritual that I'm going to do. So that's what I'm talking about. How you create your own shit. You understand? Because the stuff that you create is going to be more powerful and more stronger than shit that you get out of a book. Okay? Very important aspect to understand, but the 8 points is very important. All right. Dark Occultist Tech was working that shit through the gods, embodying that energy set. That's correct. Mandy types in, Big Bro, tell them that work. Yeah. That work isn't all peaches and cream. The best lessons hurt and stick. How you perceive and approach is your lesson. Yeah. And that's an excellent point, my man. Yeah, not all the work is pleasant. Not all the work is peaches and cream. Some of it is very, very, because it brings to the surface, it brings the real reality of some of the messed up shit that you got going on. Now you can be a trooper and deal with it and then overcome it and master it, or you can be a punk and a bitch and be in denial or succumb to it. But yeah, it's not all. You're going to find that you're going to have to deal with aspects of yourself that are tough. You might have to do things that you didn't really think that you had to do. But you have to approach it where you're going to take the initiative to put into motion things to fix those things, to correct those things. That's what a lesson is. When you learn from a lesson is supposed to instruct and teach you something. Now, it could be a painful realization of a relationship with a significant other or a family member, or it could be the seriousness of some poor decisions you made in the past that are affecting you now, but you were in denial about them, and you played the blame game. It could be, I'm just giving you some examples. But that's what work is about, and that's why we're on this path. We're on this path to master ourselves. And part of that mastery process is fixing the fucked up shit. That's not the fun part, but it's the necessary part. So yes, there are going to be times of pain. There are going to be times of struggle. There are going to be times of hardship. But remember, as I've always said before, a million times over, in that struggle, in that pain, And in those growth stages is your greatest, highest, intense spiritual moments. And guess what? When you overcome obstacles, you could always draw from that strength. You can always look back and draw on that strength when moving forward to handle other things. That's also the purpose of ritual. Why do we do rituals? Rituals transform. What do they transform? They transform the way we think, act, and how we handle situations. So when you're doing ritualistic work, again, you can draw upon your ritualistic work, like you can refer and connect to a ritual you did that activated a certain strength within yourself to maybe something you're dealing with, hardship in the future in life. You can draw back from that. That's the purpose of ritual. That's the purpose of initiation or initiatic systems. Not just to do it, not just to, go through the motions of it, but the ritual should have a significant effect on the psyche and the subconscious that stays embedded there for the right reasons. And you can activate and draw upon that strength for future situations. The work that we do here, when you see these rituals coming out on a monthly basis, and you understand what they're geared towards, even though the flyer gives you a general idea, but when you actually participate in them, you're going to understand that there's a purpose and a significance for them, and you're going to be able to go back to those rituals and draw upon them because they're going to give you strength for things you're going to deal with moving forward. That's why we do ritualistic work. It's not just because we just do it because we want to play, Hollywood occultist. No, we do it because it's reality. Like this next ritual getting ready to come up on the 28th. There's going to be some shit. You understand? It's going to be a 360 from the last one. But we're going to be dealing with a lot of the shit that we're talking about tonight. And its source or point of origin in the ritual, the powers of darkness, is going to start with a pep. And I'm not going to give out the whole thing. And then it's going to work its way from there. And it brings to the surface a wide range of emotions. And I'm going to tell you, and this type of ritual work from the past, people tap into all types of emotions. Happiness, joy, sadness. Some people, go into serious tears and breaking down. What we like to include at the end of the work, after the work is over, each individual gets to go into the chamber room privately for a few moments to do some personal work. That's important. And this type of work is individual and it's collective. But one of the beautiful things about this is, you get to go in there individually afterwards. And I've watched people come out completely in tears. And that's a good thing because they've tapped into certain emotions that have been boiling, coming to the surface, whether it's maybe they haven't significantly dealt with the passing of a loved one. I've experienced that. Maybe they have not faced the reality of something, or something was more of a hindrance to them or was bothering them or blocking them more than they actually knew. And just the intensity of it or the emotional awareness of it brings that type of feel. Some come out feeling overjoyed and just juiced up. All of that's a part of ritual. Ritual transforms. So the workings are all geared towards that. That's what we do. That's the point of doing it. That's why we go and we study and we get the point. Okay. What else we got? Almost there at the bottom. We'll wrap it up soon. Yeah, as long as no lives lost in a Hurricane Cameron bill. But I know from what I heard on the news, the one, I think there's been 3 or 4 deaths. I know one was from what I heard, a tree fell on a house and a woman and her infant child passed away due to that, which is kind of fucked up. But yeah. Manny also told me you have teaching little G ABC's back when she just started kindergarten. Yeah. That's a good skill. If she can get that, then she's actually learning it because, like I say, they teach you those ABCs in repetitive, They teach you in that ABC, and you know it because of the rhythm of the song singing it, But that's a good point. That was something that that was put in earlier. All right, what else we got? Only types of ritual is pointless unless you are seriously ready to sacrifice for the elevation on the metaphysical level. People be out here doing rituals forever with no wins, and they wonder why. And that's true. Now, remember, it could be very pointless if you're tapping into ritualistic work. Remember, you are activating high levels of energy. And I'm going to tell you this: if your intent isn't right, you're not on point with what you're doing. It's just like wasting your time, just doing, work that's irrelevant. work that's pointless. That's the reality. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's why, again, when I mentioned earlier the Book of Belial and going into that blueprint, I think that's a great structure of planning your ritualistic work, and it could be applied to any situation. To avoid that pitfall, that would be a suggestion I would make to a lot of people. All right. As a matter of fact, I have it right here, just for those that may not. I'm sure most people are familiar with it, but if you're not, these two you should always have just as a blueprint. Okay. Obviously, a cult classic, the Satanic Bible, right? But the second part that LaVey put out to this, this one here, the Satanic Rituals. This is a companion to that. They kind of go hand in hand. Now, I don't agree with everything in here. Some of it I think is kind of religious, but there are some good concepts and powerful tools you can use in here. And this is kind of some of the core foundations to black magic. Get out of the concept. I know some people hear satanic. I'm talking about most people that are just ignorant. They hear satanic and they see this and they get spooked out. It's nothing spooky about it. The fuck was that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't get spooky with it. It's only as spooky as you make it. But in there, matter of fact, where is it? I'm gonna just see if I can pop to it real quick. Right here, there's a great section in here. The God you save may be yourself, right? And really, this deals with high levels of Luciferianism. It deals with self-deification. It deals with everything we talk about, path of self-mastery. But there's a great section in there. The God you might save might be yourself, and that's precepted around the concept that you're going to find out again. You are at the center of all this. So, yeah. I would definitely look into those as blueprints. All right, what else we got? Damn, skipped on me again. Fuck. Hold on. What else we got? Bear with me. Okay. Dark occultist tapped in earlier. Sith inner alchemy allows one to face their self on all levels, and they can see their strengths and weaknesses and then transmute it to something more beneficial and powerful. By embodying the power of darkness, they can see the things that bind them and limit them. And that's true. That's kind of everything we've been talking about tonight. That's self-explanatory. I don't really think there's much to add to that. Stray Panther, Omar, that I mean is on the outskirts of the storm. Most of all we had is high winds and tons of rain, waiting to see what happens after midnight. Okay, so you're still kind of going through it. All right. Peace, brother Timothy. We got here a little late. Peace, brother. Dark occultist. I like the way in that book how he merged the Loa, Hindu, and the Tiru into cohesive workings. Yeah, the Buddha Gnostic workbook, all of those aspects. He has tied that. I thought quite unique, and you'll see that. Yeah, Chantel, it is kind of a pricey book. You can't find it on Amazon. I mean, you could probably find a used copy for like $20. But you can find it. Only types, and I have Oya's archetype over my front door. I'm not playing. New York would be devastated with crazy storms like that down south. Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're not equipped to deal with it. I was there for Sandy, and the other one was the one that was we had in I think it was 2011. It was only like a category 1. I can't remember that one. I was there for that one too. before I moved in 13. That one was barely a category one. Maybe you remember the name of it only. The one that it was 2011. I know that for sure. Can't remember the name of that storm. That's the last one that I remember hit New York direct. All right. Ivana Knowns, the peace. Dr. Colders. Peace to Brother Ivana. I know he left earlier. I'm not sure. I don't think he's here anymore. That was a while ago, according to the time. All right, we're getting there, people. Ishu walks between realms, so his energy must be appeased first, always correct. People continue to ignore him when I explain all rituals start with him. Yeah, especially in this pantheon. You definitely have to work with Papa Leg, because what does that represent to the esoterical occultist? It represents you addressing the pathways and the roadways about yourself that need to be cleared up. You can't move forward, work, and proceed without obtaining that first. So it's pointless if you haven't done the maintenance, the cleaning that needs to be done before you can proceed. So very important. Yep, and you confirmed it with your next comment. Okay. Gypsy Goddess typed in true. Even awakened and rebel, a magician, I respect the country and have the perspective of being born outside the U.S. Saw a vet today, went in and thanked him, and I respect it still. I agree. And again, that was in reference to earlier. We were talking about the whole thing that it popped up briefly about Kaepernick and the flag and all that. That was clear on my stance. I understand Kaepernick's part. And again, I want to say this. Don't look at the perspective. As I said before, understand. He went to a Marine and asked the Marine how to peacefully protest. Nobody talks about that. He clarified why he wore the blue pig socks, that he was only protesting the corrupt police officer. He clarified that. He also made it clear, and I want to make this clear. It's not, the protest was never about the flag. It was never about the country. It was about the injustices and police brutality on black people. Now, then the people that get up in their feelings about it and think it's racial, they keep forgetting the fact that he's half white and his mother's Caucasian. Nobody talks about that. Don't negate that fact. And then to my quote unquote conscious people, don't think Nike did anything favorable for him. One, understand he was still under contract with Nike making money. That was just a new deal, this new deal that just came out. Nike is not sympathizing with the cause. Nike sees that there's a market for that shit. Don't fucking fool yourself. So one thing that's getting me nauseous to my fucking stomach is all these conscious people like, oh, Nike, I'm supporting Nike. They're pro-black. Nike ain't motherfucking pro-black. Nike, no, look, there's a new market out on the horizon here. If you haven't seen it, Nike used to, instead of just marketing to hip hoppers and athletes, there's a conscious market now that these companies are marketing to people like us. You're going to start seeing this because they see there's a market for it, and there's a powerful market for it. Nike saw the opportunity. And look, their stock shot up over 30-something% since this commercial and campaign is at. So, but don't come at me with this shit. Oh, Nike's supporting the cause. Nike is supporting the cause. It's called putting money in their motherfucking pocket. You understand? And I'm just keeping it real with you. That's just the reality. So don't get me this shit. Oh, they're supporting the cause. Blah, 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 blah. No, Nike sees an opportunity to make money and they struck. And I can't blame them for it. Business is business. But my stance is I respect the flag. I respect the country I live in. As I said before, I go to sporting events. I have hold nothing against anybody that takes a knee. I understand the peaceful protest. When I'm at a baseball game, I remove my hat. I stand because I do understand people that look just like us too also contributed to the freedoms. Yeah, you can get into all the slavery shit prior to that. But remember, we weren't living during them times. So don't get into that post-slavery syndrome bullshit because I'm not buying it. So we can respectfully agree to disagree. I can only speak for myself. I do the same. Like you said, Gypsy Goddess, if I see vets, I mean, if you want to protest something, protest all these vets. The government should be protested for letting these vets come back to nothing, because these guys give their life to the country and they come back and they homeless, they on drugs, they ain't got nowhere. I personally think vets should have lifetime lifetime health care for the rest of their life if they served in any of them wars and put themselves on the front line and put their lives in danger. They're worried about protesting Kaepernick and him kneeling for the fucking flag. What they need to protest is not enough of support for these vets that come back from war and are homeless, living on the street. I remember being on the Lower East Side, Delancey and Essex Street. I used to see so many vets addicted to heroin, living on the streets, and they served in Korean War, Vietnam War, the first Gulf War, and now because they got addicted to morphine when they were out in the field. Because as you know, when they get shot, morphine is the first thing they pump them on. But that's a very addicting drug, and some of them come back and then they're not able to get off of that shit. So my thing is, I look at the thing in its totality. Don't get caught up in your feelings. Don't get caught up in it's bigger than race and your personal feelings and emotions. All right. So that's my stance on it. I can't speak for nobody. All right. All right, what we got here? Mild Divine, vampirism in connection, Luciferians with fame and fortune, as sex and money control most of the media. Clip above. Yeah. Maybe there's more to that. In essence, yes. Because of the levels of success you can obtain when practicing vampirism. Now, it depends on your definition of the aforementioned things. But yes, I can understand that statement. Maybe you have more further down. You can also use Siete Macho. I've used that oil too in workings. It works. If that was in reference to when I was talking about the 7 African powers earlier. But yes, that also works too, Brother Duno. Yeah, Tyreek, I was talking about aloe plants for the Holy Death. That's one of the key offerings you can use in conjunction with the Holy Death. Now, there's a spiritual methodology used in some of the rituals for the Holy Death. When you're doing, again, intense workings, you keep an aloe plant to the left of her. When you're doing more lighter work, you keep an aloe plant to the right. Some also, depending on how you have your altar set up, some also hang it upside down if you can attach it to something elevated. A good book to get an understanding of that, of how that works. And again, it's not mandatory to do that. I want to make that clear. Conjure Man Ali. That to me is one of the best authors on explaining the different aspects of working with the Holy Death. Just type in the Holy Death, La Santissima Muerte, Conjure Man Ali, who I was actually trying to get to come on the radio show, and I'm going to reach out to him again. But he also connects it very intently to the Aztec goddess of the underworld, which is really the origin of where the Santa Muerte archetype comes from. It goes back to the ancient Aztec goddess of the underworld. But that's a good book to understand that. All right. All right. Okay. Okay, Gypsy Goddess, I got you. R.L. Grace, hi guys. Street Panther, peace, Brother B. Be easy out here in this weather. Yep. Oshun has been my mama, more than my biological mom, okay? Rasa and Abe are twins. You may as well have twin Ashua, aka Kalfa. True indeed. Kalfa only comes through my devianation through Odu Ofun. Okay. Seems like I need something and he comes to bring it or remove shit. His energy always has a purpose. Not true indeed. It's very intense. Urzili Dantor helps with keeping your household together. True indeed. Tariq, ultimate of all things. I know this. I don't know why this guy. YouTube does that intentionally. They'll screen some comments. I don't know why they do it. But Tariq, all right, so almost here at the bottom. Tariq, ultimate of all things, Queen, Hela, Lilith, Santissima Muerte. So he's showing you some synchronizations here. Fenrir, Anubis, Cerebus, Jormungan, the Pep, Apophis. Man, these 3 Norse niggas right here is a type of ancestral nerve to invoke if you're trying to get justice, womb healing, fertility, subconscious work, dream protection, ego, Tammy. I mean, the list is endless. That's excellent. Excellent point. Good synchronization. Yeah, and there's another way. I mean, there's so many ways and dynamics to work with this shit. Okay. I utilize deific energy to help with a lot of shit. I don't think I needed but now I realize I need to develop them in me. All right. Mavi, I'm ready for the next ritual. I know you are, and we'll see you down there. I'm wondering, are you coming to the drumming on Saturday? Hopefully you're able to come out Saturday night to the drumming too. All right. All right. So I think that's it. But real quick, before everybody goes, want to remind everybody again, if you are planning on attending the ritual on the 28th, again, just send me the email. We are having drumming out on the beach this upcoming Saturday, not tomorrow. I'm sorry, I want to make it clear. Next Saturday, the 22nd. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. And I want to remind everybody the first Friday of every month, we will have a Black Mass and a class to follow after the Black Mass. And if you are interested in a spiritual consultation or a reading for all the aforementioned things, you can contact me at khnum19@gmail.com. If you forget that, it's in the description box and of all the videos, the email address. All right. That's what we got for now. Finished for this evening. Probably see you guys in a few days. Peace, and we'll talk soon. All right.